Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Here we start our next session, and the topic for panel discussion is development of Agri Stack, building blocks of sustained agriculture growth. So please join me in welcoming on stage the moderator of this session, Mr. Nipun Mehrotra, founder, the Agri Collaboratory. Now I would like to invite the esteemed speakers for this panel discussion. So let me welcome Shri Rajeev Chawla, Chief Knowledge Officer and Advisor, Digital Agriculture, Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, MOA and FW, Government of India. Mr. Abhay Pareek, Lead Fourth Industrial Revolution for Agriculture, India, World Economic Forum. Mr. Kartheeswaran, KK, co-founder and CEO, Ninjacart. And Mr. Sachin Nandwana, co-founder, BigHaat Agro Private Limited. So we'll be taking few questions at the end of the session, if time permits. Thank you, sir. You can take it over from here.
Okay, thank you, and welcome to everyone in a global fintech event. Coming to an agri-tech session is extremely interesting, and thank you for GFF for first of all organizing it. But you know, when the Prime Minister mentions agri-tech for the first time from the ramparts of the Red Fort, and when the Finance Minister talks about digital public infrastructure for agri in her budget speech, you can then recognize that the intersection of DPIs and agri-tech is an absolutely hot spot. So thank you for coming to this session, and you have chosen well. We are going to spend time today on deciphering a little bit about what is the government doing and how should we be thinking about going forward on the Agri Stack, taking into account views from World Economic Forum and a couple of the big startups here. But let me just, it's a mixed audience, so let me just set the context. Look, digital agri is extremely critical or digital technologies is extremely critical for agriculture, right? I don't think there are two opinions on that issue. And data that drives digital agriculture is both a big, huge enabler as well as an inhibitor, right? So we're going to really dive deep a little bit into that topic. Before I bring on Rajeev Chawla, and Rajeev Chawla has been doing some stupendous work in the ministry at the central government, and before that in the Karnataka government as well, with the work that he did for the Bhumi project and the fruits project, etc. But before I bring him on, I'd like to get the three other co-panelists just to take maybe 30 seconds, starting with you, Sachin, and just talking about your perspectives on the Agri Stack. And then I want Rajeev to maybe spend 10 minutes in walking us through the efforts that's going on. And then we'll dive into three aspects. The first one, really talking about what are the right building blocks we should be thinking about, number one. Number two, how do we make them reusable? And third, how do we make them inclusive, right? Sachin, over to you.
Thanks, sir. So I would start with one of the problem statement, like we are talking about farmers, and we are saying remove the middleman so that farmers can get the better price. I'm saying middleman is not an issue. It's a simple e-commerce, supply chain imbalance. Farmers are taking a decision based on the market price at that time of sowing. They don't have any system where they can take the informed decision that how much, whether their crop is in the risk or not. And that's where I say it's a need of the hour, that we should have one system which can inform farmer that whether they should go for X crop or Y crop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the way I look for Agri Stack, sir, the way DP has changed a lot of things in India. It has driven a lot of macros, right from Aadhaar, eventually with UPA and now with account aggregators, OK and ONDC. I think like say Agri Stack is like one such thing for our space, right, for the agri-tech space. Really looking forward to like be a part of it, leverage that, and then co-create the solutions in this journey and like make this a fantastic one.
I'll just simplify Agri Stack, and Sari's here, but before that, I think it just simplifies everything for all the startups and private sectors. It defines who is the farmer, where is he growing his crop, what is he growing, and once we have weather and soil data, it basically helps us understand what is my risk mitigation against weather and what is my cultivation potential. And I think that's a tremendous amount of data to innovate basically anything over it.
And I'm glad that all three of you have taken a use case approach to talk about what your expectations of the Agri Stack are. Through the session, you will hear words like DPGs and DPIs, and just to level set everyone, digital public goods are smaller building blocks that can be used in larger solutions. They are not a solution by themselves, but they enable other solutions to come to life, right? So with that, Rajeev, can I turn it over to you for a few minutes to give us a perspective?
I can do that, and I think...
Anuj, can we have the charts up?
If you're fine, I'll stand there and explain.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah.
And I'll take about 10 minutes so that, you know, people are aware of what Government of India is doing. So thank you so much.
Is that on? Hold on, is the mic on?
Thank you so much. And while Agri Stack Agri Stack is a generic word people think. Like, you know, you have India Stack, and I'm sure all of you have by now the hype which is there around this subject in G20. Everywhere you all are aware. So listen, what is Agri Stack? After all, it is enabler for agriculture to become digital. That's all. And obviously, the job of the Government of India would be to enable. And when I say Government of India, along with the state governments. So I would, in about 6-7 slides, explain to you as to what all is Agri Stack. That means, what is this enabler we are talking? And how can all these use cases which are piggybacking on this actually piggyback and deliver? Next slide, please. Now, if you really talk about Agri Stack, the way government is implementing, because everybody understands it differently, it is just collection of some simple things. One, of course, is data. And when you talk about data, then you talk about policies. After all, you have a data. How do you share it? With whom do you share? When do you share? What do you not share? And then, of course, if you talk about data and policies, you also talk about APIs. After all, you have to share electronic data. You can't share it without some tools. And those tools, as we all understand, are APIs. So this is all what Agri Stack is all about. But let's now come to the next slide. Now, Agri Stack, if you really ask what it is what Aadhaar did in general. Believe me, after 2 years, Agri Stack would do to all the farmers. How many farmers are there? There are about 17 to 18 crore farmers who are having land. And if you multiply them by 5, it becomes about 70-80 crore. If you talk about landless farmers, cultivators, tenants, you will cross about 100 crore, which is the number of population which lives in rural areas, approximately. Now, Aadhaar had very simple data. Who are you? What is your photograph? What is your fingerprint? In case of Agri Stack, what it will do is that for about 17 to 18 crore farmers to start with, those who are having land, it will answer some fundamental questions. Number one, are you a farmer? Given Aadhaar, are you a farmer? Or of course, there would be farmer ID also, the way you have different IDs, health ID. Number two, if you are a farmer, where are your lands? How many lands you have? You may have lands in 3 states. So how many lands you have? What is the location of each of this land? And then, of course, what is the crop you are growing? So the Government of India says, if we can do this much, tell you that he is a farmer, tell you where his land is, and how much land he has, and what is the crop grown, I am sure the creative minds here in this hall can then perhaps piggyback, and you can now understand how similar it is to Aadhaar. Aadhaar says, what is your name? What is your gender, male, female, fingerprint? Here it says these questions. Right. Of course, when you talk about these things, you have to expose that data. So you have a layer called UFSI. हर आदमी UPI बोलता है, इसलिए हमने UFSI बोल दिया. क्योंकि भाई you have to fall in line. भेड़ चाल है. तो UPI Unified Public Payment Interface, where we say Unified Farmers Service Interface. So basically some APIs. And then of course there would be regulations, etc. Your Aadhaar is a regulator. We will have a Agri Stack regulator. Next slide, please. So these are beautiful questions which Agri Stack will answer for all the farmers and for all the lands. I will post this presentation on Twitter. You need not, I mean, I'm sure you will like it. I'll post it on Twitter. Don't take photographs. If you listen and understand, I think my coming from Bangalore would be fulfilled. So for 17 crore farmers and 85 crore plots which they own, every farmer owns about 5 pieces of land, small pieces of land. What are the questions it will answer? On the left-hand side, it will tell who you are, what is name, what is his caste, what is the residence, what is the mobile number. On the right-hand side, it will tell what are the lands he owns, not static data. It is dynamic. It comes from the land record system. So in Maharashtra, you have Satbara. In Karnataka, you have RTC. So it picks up the data from there. It's a dynamic data. On the left-hand side, it talks about where is that land. And this comes from the old Britishers' work. We anyway work little lesser than what we were made to work at that time. So we have 6.5 lakh village maps, which were thankfully, and people may not like my talking, were created when we were under the influence of the British government. That data is there in the form of the maps which are there. On the right-hand side, what is a crop grown on each of these plots? And then, of course, what is the soil health and what are the benefits you have taken? Each benefit which you take from government for that farmer. So this is what is Agri Stack. Where is your land? How much land? What is the crop grown? What is the soil? And of course, what are the benefits that farmer has taken? Next slide. Now, these are 24 other registries which would be formed. So here we are different from Aadhaar. That Aadhaar only tells about farmers, but we tell you much more. We tell you what are the types of crops. So for example, there are 341 crops with vernacular names in the country. What are the type of pesticides? What are the type of fertilizers? How many branches are there of the banks? Where are those branches? And so many things which would be developed. These registries would help you to deliver use cases. Next slide. Just let's take a very simple use case. And this is operational as on today. Thanks to Jan Samarth, the Department of Financial Services and the bankers who are working, this is operational. I have 2 more slides after one. This is the last slide. We'll talk about the other 2 slides later. So a farmer wants to take a loan. Today, you know what he does? He goes to the bank physically, and there, of course, 10,000 rupees are spent over a period of 30-40 days. He has to prove he is a farmer. So he takes a land record copy. The bank does not believe, he thinks it is a fake copy. And then he has to show what is the crops he has grown. Then he has to go to sub-registrar office to register his loan. And about 10,000-15,000 rupees, including the middleman, goose, etc., is all spent by him. Can we do it electronically? Of course you can do electronically. You give your farmer ID or Aadhaar. Aadhaar and farmer ID are same. Aadhaar is a foundational ID. Farmer ID is a functional ID. So you give your Aadhaar or, and obviously immediately I come to know who you are because you do your fingerprinting, or now we have facial authentication. So on your mobile you show your face and I know you're not lying because I know your Aadhaar, I also know your face. I immediately connect to Agri Stack, and in that standard form which is there on the top, I can fill all his data. Where are his lands? What are the crops he has grown? What are the locations of that land? I immediately pick up the satellite. Mind you, this is not fictional. This is all very simple. The moment I give you coordinates, the satellite data tells, कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि यहाँ पे घर बना हुआ है, कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि ये बंजर पड़ी हुई है जमीन. And you obviously come to know through the satellite. Immediately, the credit system tells, civil बोलता है यार ये तो आदमी कभी पैसा वापस से निकल. So the bank, I mean, all these are very simple. There is nothing, no rocket science about it. And then, of course, then there would be electronic rules built into the Jan Samarth on behalf of various banks who will say, मैं तुम्हें इतना पैसा दे दूंगा इतने interest rate पे, मैं तुम्हें इतना पैसा दे दूंगा इतने interest rate पे. The farmer makes a choice from which bank he wants the loan. अभी तो बेचारा जा जाके हाथ पांव जोड़ रहा था. Now he is in control of the things. He knows from where to take the loan because all banks have replied in real time. You select which farmer to take, which bank to take. You do a digital signing of the agreement. Now look at this. You, thanks to the e-sign which came from India Stack, you do e-sign. The banker does his normal PKI signature. The digital agreement is signed. What now? This agreement electronically goes to the sub-registrar office. It goes to the sub-registrar office, and the sub-registrar office accepts this document electronically, no physical visit. Of course, you require rules to be amended, you require all type of process reforms to be done, and as soon as digital lien marking is done, the payment is done. That's it. Now, if you see 2-3 important things, I came to know the land which you have, I was able to sign electronically, I was able to deposit your agreement in the sub-registrar office as a guarantee for getting the loan. Now, see the last thing. After the season is over, the Agri Stack can now tell you actually what he had grown. So let's say he had taken a loan for sugarcane, but the joker never grew anything. He left it free. So the machine, we will be able to tell you because all 85 crore plots we would be tracking by physically sending people. 6.5 lakh people go to 85 crore plots 3 times a year in Kharif, Rabi and summer to pick up from each plot what is grown. So we'll be able to tell what is the crop grown, and if he has lied, then of course you blacklist him or whatever you want to do. These are the things which are in process now. I have some timelines which Nipun will ask.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do it, Rajeev? In fact, what I wanted him to do was to talk about the timelines. We can save time.
Next slide. Now, I will not talk much. Jan Samarth is a switch. So you will have like UPI, you will have multiple front ends. So NABARD will build one, Punjab National Bank will build one, like UPI where you have so many, pay me, phone pay, this, that, Google Pay. You will also have multiple front ends. And the switch will get response from all the banks and show it to this gentleman. This gentleman will decide which bank to choose. He will digitally sign whatever I explained. Now, thankfully, the system is in place. And thanks to Jan Samarth, that this system is today operational with 5 banks in Karnataka. And I am sure that in next 5 to 6 months, there would be good results. Next slide, please. Now, these are the timelines, and you may like to, it's very exciting. So what we are talking is not just in vacuum. We are saying that the farmer registry, that means whether he is a farmer, what are his lands, would be ready by 30th October, 1 district each in 12 states. Why 12 states? These 12 states are those states which have about 86% of the farmers. So we are obviously not talking about 36 states. We are talking about 12 states. And the whole state of these 12 states should be consumed by January 2024. So 85% of the farmers would be covered by this system in January 2024, and we would stand by what we are saying. The maps, as on today, we have 4 lakh villages where we can tell you each plot where it is. But we have 6.75 lakh villages. I think by March 2024, so they have to be digitized and geo-referenced. It is a slow process, but I'm sure it will happen. 4 lakh villages we have already covered. And then, of course, how do you find out whether the crop, which is the crop grown? So Government of India has come up with a system called Digital Crop Survey, where you go to each field. I will not take time to explain why it can't be done through satellite. I will not explain that. You will have to believe me that you will have to physically go and find out what is a crop grown. There is an intercrop, there is a crop below crop, there is a crop above crop, there is a coconut on the top, there is a moong dal below. You can't see all these things from satellite. And that crop grown, you will find complete saturation in 12 states from Rabi. And the Rabi starts in October, November. The API gateways, the consent manager for personal data, no data would be given without consent. So there would be a consent manager for all the 17 crore farmers. And then, of course, the data exchange and the sandbox are all expected by November 2023. So that's all I wanted to tell. Thank you.
So thank you, Rajeev. This is absolutely stupendous work. Rajeev, aap beech mein aa jaye. My questions will obviously be around, what are the role that the private sector can play, ecosystem can play, etc. Let me start with you, Sachin. I will also open it up a little bit earlier to get the pulse of the audience. If there are a couple of quick questions that you'd like to pose, be ready with them. If you can have the mics also around, but in a few minutes. Sachin, your quick thoughts on what Rajeev shared. What are the things that you think come to mind for you? It clearly opens up and simplifies a lot of things for your business, right?
So I think this is a good start when we are talking about Agri Stack and long way to go. I personally believe that without collaboration, the value which we want to create, not even for the farmers, for all the stakeholders, will not be possible. I will give you just one example. Like let me just share the story so that you can understand how I am looking. So let's say being a BigHaat, we are able to predict almost 50 days before than anyone in the ecosystem that where crop is shifting. Why? Because farmer is coming on my platform. We engage 20 million farmers out of 150, 2.5 million farmers we are engaging every month. When he is searching, so we know the searching pattern, keywords, and we are able to predict whether this time crop is shifting to the chili or cotton or any other crop. Okay. This information I am getting almost 15 to 20 days before farmers are going for the purchase. Once purchase is done, then because anyone is looking at the satellite data, that satellite data, it means they will be able to observe after 25 days of the sowing. Okay, it means that 25 days plus 20 days, it's around 45, 50 days window I have where I have a well in advance. So how I told one of the problem statement that farmers are not taking the informed decision. If we are not collaborating, you will give the information, जिसको हिंदी बोलते हैं सांप निकलने के बाद में लाठी पीटना. So sowing is done. Risk is not mitigated for the farmers. Okay.
So Sachin, I know we are a little tight on time. What would you suggest based on what you heard from Rajeev? What are the one or two concrete suggestions you would have on top of that?
So I believe it should be open API, like we are saying, and anyone who is willing to collaborate, they should private and public, we can say, the data we should share. And low hanging, I see that where the government data which is available, that can be available to the other players. I will just give you one example that will give the clarity. Like UPI we created where anyone is using the framework and building the different product. Similar way, the crop doctor, it means the farmers can detect the disease and they can get the scientific advisory. So government is sitting on the pile of data, the images of the crop and the problem, it means the disease impact and the pattern. So if they can make it public, anyone can build the product which can be used by the farmers. So
I believe they will make it public, but you have a lot of private sector data as well that you would also like to upload to the system. Rajeev, you would allow that, right?
100%. 3 registries are not enough. There's so much of data with the private sector. And this data should be available on a data exchange so that people can collaborate with each other. Government will give only foundational data. For example, satellite data or his data that he's predicting who is going to grow what. If somebody else wants to consume, I should at least facilitate. So we'll have exchanges where we would onboard such people and you can buy data from them. We have nothing to do with this. We'll only facilitate you to, apart from these core registries, get other data from other people.
So Rajeev, I know you've been talking a lot about the private sector's role to be the use case driver, right? But beyond just a use case provider, I mean, use case is a very important aspect. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But apart from that, bringing together data that is available to the private sector is also a very important role that you want the private sector to play.
So, you know what he said, Nipun. Number one, what would I do with Aadhaar? Just imagine if Aadhaar is not used by you. It's a junk. There's a value because you use it. And therefore people update it. They go, they change their address. So therefore, I am very clear in my mind. Agri Stack is a big zero if it is not used. Of course, it will be used by government, but it should be used by private sector for delivering services. use this data to give delivery. Number one. Number two, as Nipun was saying, that you should also collaborate, upload, or rather go to the exchange and provide your data on cost. Don't do it free. Government will do it free. You don't have to do it free. Let others share. I mean, if you keep your data with you, he'll also keep data with him. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that I'm sure that with time, some building blocks, which Government of India has not considered. Government of India is only considering, for example, take some AI ML building block. I am not interested, I'm not competent. It's not my job to create those building blocks. I mean, take Aadhaar, it never created any block. It's depending upon you what you want to do. So I'm sure there would be huge building blocks. One of that can be a wonderful AI ML tool. And there will be many which people like Nipun must have thought, which can then come and collaborate with this whole ecosystem. And I think we should facilitate the building blocks to connect to these blocks and do whatever they want to do.
So Abhay, I'll come to you. I want you to touch upon two things. One is with the experience of some of the states, right? What do you see happening at the state level that you think either could accelerate the work that Rajeev is doing, or actually pose other roadblocks, or you know, in the sense if states are doing their own building of data exchanges and other things, does that actually create a problem at a national level? Number one. Number two, talk a little bit about the policy aspects as to what you see happening, because agriculture is a state subject, and you have done a lot of work at a state level as well as with the center on the idea, consultancy, document, etc. Go ahead, Abhay.
Sure. So I'll take example of Telangana, where we've been working with the state government of Telangana to develop the country's first agriculture data exchange, and that's live now. But I don't see that as a hindrance, because as Rajeev sir is saying, you know, data exchange is a mechanism to share data, whereas Agri Stack is a foundational block. So I think they have to build upon that and build and that should drive the innovations. But the key point is two-way communication in it. Mm-hmm. So though government has started with their data sets, I think it's really important within next 6 months or 1 year, once the trust develops, and that's the key word that I believe, trust develops between private sector and government, the two-way communication on the data should happen. Connected to that, as you were saying, policy, we realized that when you're creating a data exchange, it cannot be done in vacuum. We have to have a policy framework around it, because sharing of data is a critical issue. So again, in Telangana, and I think can be expanded to any state, is we have created an agri data management framework, which may soon become a policy, which basically says what are the SOPs?
Data sharing.
Data sharing, but it rolls out the SOPs of data sharing. It gives the mechanisms of consent management. It defines grievance redressal mechanisms, which is very important. So it gives a clear framework for a government to feel safe and bureaucrats to feel safe that yes, we can share data.
We could adopt that at a country level as well, Rajeev. What do you think?
Why not?
Right?
Why not? After all, if you are writing some framework, Government of India will also write a framework. So if that framework, I mean, all I have to do is thanks to Microsoft cut, copy, paste. I'll pick up your data and I'll say it's my data. Your policy is my policy, and you will also be happy, I'll also be happy. A good policy remains a good policy, whether you write it or I write it. If somebody else has written, we would of course look at it. What he is saying is the following. He is saying, look, how do you bring this non-personal data apart from these three registries? Are you a farmer? How many lands you have? Where are your lands and crop? There's so much other data, weather data, right? Soil data, right? Pest data. All type of things. What he is saying is, can we also bring this data onto the data exchange? Right. And if it has to be brought, there has to be policies.
Questions from the audience quickly? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think great to see the development. I'm going to see a lot of problems, and the front side is
your
going
name
to.
And just quickly.
Yeah, so my question is with respect to.
Who are you?
I'm sorry, I'm Shankar Tyagarajan from Sundaram Finance Limited. So we deal with the farmers. So the question is, how are we going to ensure his produce, he realizes money there? Are we building some tech solutions there so that it ensures, financiers' interest is covered?
Access to markets?
Yeah. Access to market and ensures.
More will come
Credit
back.
history is missing for the farmers, which you want to get it recorded.
No, credit history is not an issue. I think now we are able to reach that, and all these are going to give a tremendous insight into it. But the point is, when he sells the produce and the money to be recovered, so there is a chain which is there.
Yeah.
From a farmer, it moves
That's
to
the
a
work
boss.
that
You establish a lien on the money so that you first get the recovery back before the profits are booked.
So that's the work that we do, Shankar. So at Ninjacart, we build the entire output marketplace for the farmer.
Okay.
So we help farmers get payments much faster from their counterparties. Could be a trader, retailer, anybody, right?
Okay.
So we do that in Ninjacart today. But with Agri Stack coming in, it will be a lot more simpler for us. We can connect with so we don't. I mean, we would like to work with multiple banks to do it faster. So if we all share a common data language, it will be much easier to collaborate.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, and some of those things will become very useful when we start thinking about
I would,
cash flow lending.
Nipun, if you allow me 20 seconds, I like to show the last slide, which will tell as to what we will do with this data. Till now we were, so if
Why don't you start sharing that? In the meantime, let's
somebody
take the
can-
question.
So,
Go ahead. The hands up, yeah. Let's just take one or two questions and then we'll bring it on. Rajeev.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
I'm Matt Gamzer from the International Finance Corporation, part of the World Bank. Two very short questions. First one's about consent and the governance. Is there going to be a different consent for AgriStack data than from other India Stack data, or will there be one consent for the individual that'll cover everything? My second question is about to what extent clearly you can see how you would inform the ag credit programs. What about other financial products? What about crop futures? What about getting the capital markets more involved in the ag system? What about warehouse receipts? What about all sorts of other products because of the real-time data on what's on the farm?
Okay, very quickly.
so if somebody can show the last slide.
Can you have the
See,
chart
what
up?
we were saying was that look, this data has, so if you really see this last slide, what we are saying is that this data, which is like Aadhaar for agriculture, would solve four important cases. And who will build it? Will Government of India build it? The answer is big no. The Government of India is not going to build it. We would encourage people like these fellows to do this. Advisory, credit, sale of input, purchase of produce. You spoke about it. Now, how would you pick up this data? And how would you actually make a cycle where whatever questions you ask is left to brains like you? You are, of course, much sharper than us. So like the Geo was able to do crores of customers in so much short time, I'm sure you will find out answers to the questions once you have this basic data. That's one. Second, so you have to do this, you will have to develop their digital solutions, and you, of course, then would become what is called authorized service provider. As far as consent is concerned, if you have a personal data which we are keeping, we have to get consent from the farmers. But if there is some other data which somebody else is giving, then farmer will have to give consent to that person. It depends upon who is giving the data. So the data principal has to give consent to the data fiduciary who is maintaining the data on behalf of the principal. So there can be different consents.
That's fair.
So, I'm Santosh from Karnataka. I am in the agri space as a grower as well as a commodity trader. With so much of data being captured, I see the kind of solutions it will come by. But one question to you, sir, is the Fasal Bima Yojana, the insurance side, we've seen a disparity of, for various reasons, probably because of lack of information, lack of crop information, lack of rainfall data, whatever, weather data, whatever it is. So where do we see it with so much of data being taken and also the kind of stack which is being built? One is that. Another thing, a follow-up question to what he was referring to. So I was also involved in the couple of commodity exchanges where when coffee...
Could you please ask the question?
So what I wanted to say is the price discovery, where is it heading? And would we see a solution in where he opened the session with the overall crop planning because of the price discovery mechanism which will set in thanks to the whole stack which is taking shape? Thank you.
See, as far as Government of India is concerned, we are opening the data. People like you will build solution on the top of it.
I think he's made that very clear. The infrastructure is available and the data itself will open up so many other use cases. KK, your thoughts about how do you plan to use it, or what do you think we should be doing differently?
I think maybe before, see, I definitely see a lot of leverage, right? The way he talked about insurance, credit, market linkages, input side, a lot of use cases, right? It would be actually really great to understand a bit more about how the entire framework is designed in terms of data curation and data accuracy, right? Is it like just static data? Is it real-time data accuracy? How are we going to ensure that? Similarly, are we looking at any enforcement, sir? The way Aadhaar got enforced over a period of time across multiple places, are we looking at the entire farmer ID getting enforced across multiple places?
So, because you have less time and Nipun will like to drive this, just a very simple thing. Will the land be accurate? The answer is 100%. As and when mutation would take into the underlying system of the land records, the farmer registry will automatically
But that is dependent on the state maintaining an
100%.
accurate record.
The state has to update mutations. That means if I sell land to you, it should be mutated in your name. And I must tell you that in last 25 years, lots of work has been done on land records. Land records are reasonably good. Of course, there are deaths which are not reported. We are handling those things. But I will say 80 to 85% data would show the actual owner, number one. Number two, where is his land? Land doesn't change with time. The land is where it is. So therefore, the village maps which were created long back will show that piece of land there only, because you move, land doesn't move. The third point is crop data. So as I told you, we will capture crop data of all 80 crore plots 3 times a year in Kharif, Rabi and summer. But we'll have only one. We only go and poll it once. So we can't tell you about health, but we can 100% with guarantee will tell you that this gentleman has grown sugarcane. And Santosh, therefore, when crop insurance would be done, if you do a fake crop insurance, if you have grown soya bean but you register groundnut, the way it happens in Gujarat, we would be able to tell you that this gentleman has not grown groundnut and that he has insured for groundnut. So there would be large number of use cases which are in government domain. I did not talk about it because of limited time.
Okay. Now, yesterday we were talking to Priyank Kharge, the IT minister in Karnataka, and Rajeev, based on your work in Karnataka as well, one of the topics we started discussing was tenanted farmers, right? How do we actually come together to solve an issue around tenanted farmers?
Very good question. How do you take care of tenanted farmers? Now, unfortunately, and you know, I did land records in 2000, and I never realized at that time, foolish as I was, that this data would be so useful, not for regulatory purpose, but for development purpose. Now, we now realize that there are tenancy laws in almost all the states. Superficial laws of no consequence now, saying tenancy is not allowed. Karnataka says tenancy is not allowed. You give land to somebody else, it will be gone forever. And the fun is that 50% of the lands in Karnataka are tenanted. So what Nipun is asking, actually the land is tilled by the tenant, but you are showing the land name of the owner. So I think now governments are finding solutions to it, because you kindly keep in mind, it's not the question of capturing his name. The question is of showing his name in government records. The moment you show it is tenanted, the land actually vests with the government. But you are tenant, so everybody knows it is tenanted. So there are states like Andhra and Telangana, which are in fact now encouraging tenancy and recording tenancy. But we'll have to find out ways, regulations will have to change, some good solutions will have to come out. But Nipun, I completely concede to your point that unless you have tenants recorded to the system, the utility of Agri Stack is limited.
Or we create digital footprints that over time will tell you what this individual is doing on that piece of land, and therefore you can then stitch those points together and try.
Problem is I can't bring it into the government system because tenancy is illegal. So the problem is law. The problem is not the data. Data he'll also have, you will also have. The problem is, can I recognize this data?
Yeah.
Now, people have, for example, 4 husbands or 4 wives, but you can't record it in the government system. It's illegal. But the fact is it's happening. So therefore, the similar way tenancy is happening. Unless you change the law, the underlying layer inhibits you to record it.
So let me go around quickly and see what comments others have. But one quick thing, Rajeev, that Abhay brought out, which is that Telangana now has a data exchange, and METI also is coming up with a data exchange for agri.
And I'm sure we can use both of them.
No, absolutely. But the specifications and the integration is already planned for?
Look, if there are multiple exchanges, there are plus and minus. These guys will obviously not love to listen to those technical things. But I'm saying we should try to accommodate innovations from all
states. Okay, perfect.
Government cannot be the innovator. In fact, government is a bad innovator.
Yeah. No, but having said that, I know you're being very modest, Rajeev, but the work that you're doing is very, very innovative. So kudos to you.
But there are more innovators.
We need everyone. We need everyone. We need to work more in a collaborative framework, as Sachin was saying at the beginning. But let me quickly go around. Abhay, with you, just last few closing thoughts.
So I'll touch upon a critical point of ecosystem or the building blocks, sir. We have been in touch with Rajeev sir and working with him also on that. Is that I think on these three use cases of advisories, inputs, and markets, we need building blocks. What SSR said, Aadhaar itself was not able to drive the traction that was there until this NPCI came in picture or UPI came in picture. So ONDCs, ENAMs of the world, or maybe Jan Samarth or similar platform for agri fintech, where lenders are just restricting their work to lending and not about due diligence, identifying customer on onboarding and saving resources around that, is required to proliferate Agri Stack. So it's just not on the government, but also on these institutions to come and talk to government and create that network, which will then drive ecosystem is super critical. And last one thing, I'll just take 30 seconds, is very important is the validation of new technologies. So a block that Sir talked about is Agri-Tech Sandbox, where I think it's also important that new technologies, say maybe advisories, are validated before they go to farmer using the data that's there, so that at least farmers' risk of acting on a wrong advisory is minimized. So validating platforms, validating solutions, at least to the accuracy where that's 80% or 70% accurate, is really important before they go and hit market using the Agri-Stack data.
I fully subscribe to you. It's like giving advice by looking at your data but not looking at you. Yeah. Doctors. Till today, you physically want to see a doctor and doctor wants to physically see you. Can you give advisory without seeing the land? And what if it goes wrong? And if you say pest is going to attack and the pest does not attack, or vice versa, who pays to the farmer? So therefore, validation of such intelligent solutions would be something which either government will have to do or the industry itself will have to do.
Absolutely. But the sandbox is a great idea and something that you should, I think, take it on across other states. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so if you're very, very certain about the accuracy of data and if you're very certain about the enforcement of farmer ID across multiple systems, the way Aadhaar evolved in India, I think, like, say, we're very, very inclined to get started. Like, I think as soon as we get started, like, say, start building some initial use cases, we co-create a solution along with Shankar here, like, say, figure out a way to collaborate on the basis of the Agri Stack farmer ID. If we can collaborate multiple solutions and get started, it'll be really great. Would be love to be part of the November rollout plan, sir.
Very good. Address the commerce part behind this. So like I am paying to Google, Facebook to reach out to the farmers. If I know the interest, I will be happy to pay. Instead of paying to the Google and Facebook, I will be ready to pay to the stakeholders who are the part of this ecosystem.
No, I think, thank you. And, you know, with G20 starting in 2 days' time from now, I think it's very appropriate the work that is happening in India, not only around building an agri stack and the data stack, but also thinking about digital public goods as a building block that we could all come together to try and co-create, right? And so there are lots of lessons that I'm sure will come out from the work that is happening at this point that could be applied to the global south, or more broadly to even to the global north in many instances, right? I will just end by saying that from an agri-collaboratory standpoint, we are ourselves an ecosystem player. We are trying to work with all the participants here to think about how do we co-create digital public goods in an open space, collaboratively with the ecosystem and the government. That will actually enable some of the complex problems to get solved in our lifetime at least. With that, thank you so much. And we will summarize the outputs of this discussion and maybe have it sent to all of you or made it publicly available. Thank you.
Thank you.